Hello beautiful people, and welcome back to Ready Resto. So in the last episode you saw that we got this guy to kind of just show us that there's signs of life in there, and that he still wants to go and still has plenty of miles left in him. But in this episode what we're going to try and do is see if I can get this thing to idle and run under its own power. So I finally have the oil priming tool, which has finally arrived. Better late than never, right? So at least now I can get it primed, ensure that there is oil in the right places before we run it, because I do not want to damage this engine. So obviously very reluctant in the last episode to kind of start it any further than what we got to so far without that tool. So we're gonna get this thing primed. Few things, just gonna flip the camera around so you can see. So a few things I want to do here. In the last episode it did run, but it didn't sound great. So I am thinking, just to sort of backtrack and mark my own homework, if you will, I'm going to double check that I got it right when I did the top dead center. Now remember, in an engine there's two top dead centers. There's one on the compression stroke and one on the exhaust stroke. So I just want to double check using my compression gauge. I'm going to try and check and just see that I got it on the right TDC and that I didn't mistakenly put it on the wrong one, because obviously I did rotate this a couple of times, adjusting the rotor there, trying to prime it the first time. So I'm wondering if maybe I've got it wrong on that front, so it's firing on the wrong stroke. So I'm going to check that as well. I'm going to double check the lead as well. So I'm going to start with the compression first, right, just in case everything's right. Another thing after doing some homework is, now this distributor here has a 12 volts electronic points in there. The coil, when I looked at the original, like trying to find information on this coil, which there is very little on, it said that it needed a ballast resistor. Now there is one in here. I don't know whether when the power's going through it in run, that it's collapsing the coil, sort of collapsing in terms of the voltage is collapsing in there, just because this guy either doesn't function properly or it needs a direct 12 as opposed to and doesn't need the ballast resistor at all. I don't know, but some sort of a little bit of homework's told me perhaps it needs a direct 12 instead of the ballast resistor, which is then just collapsing the voltage in the coil, forcing it, distributor electronic points, not to have enough power to keep firing. So that's why it dies instantly the moment you stop the key. It just dies because it just doesn't have the oomph to do it. So I'm going to check two things. So I'm going to start with the timing first, because I just want to see that first of all I have it in the right place before we cause any damage, before trying to start it again. We're going to then, if that doesn't work and it still doesn't fire, then have a look at the electronics and just see if the coil maybe just needs to be rewired. So what I'm going to use is a fused jumper cable between here and here, just to kind of, just in case anything goes wrong, just jump it and just see, does it fire? Because if it fires like that, then we know it's an electrical issue between here, basically. But that's where we are. So obviously with that is going to be the priming as well. So I'm going to prime the oil first before anything else, and then I'm going to try and get the radiator plumbed in properly as well, so we can try and get some coolant in, because the next task after I have everything else to hear that the engine runs is to get the alternator bracket fashioned, something for the alternator to hold this guy in place so I can put the belts on and then actually get coolant churning through this system as well. So that's going to be a difficult thing, because the alternator is proving a bit difficult just because of its size. Now I did buy a larger amperage alternator just because we want to add some, radio to this thing. We want to add a few more electrics over time. So I bought something a little bit more powerful, but that's now proven difficult because it's slightly bigger and doesn't quite fit in the gap properly. So we're gonna have to try and figure that out as well. But look, let's get into it. Let's try and get this thing idling. That's what you guys are waiting for. You guys are waiting to hear how beautiful this thing sounds as much as I am. So let's get stuck in. So for those of you who have never used or seen a compression gauge before, this is what you're looking at, right? So you can buy one of these kits off eBay. They're not very expensive. And essentially it comes with multiple fittings. So essentially these are your spark plug sizings. So in my case, I've got the largest one here, which is this fella. So this essentially screws in where the spark plug is. So you remove spark plug from cylinder 1, screw this guy in, and then essentially this part of the cable screws into there, and then that end goes into the top end here, goes into the gauge. So you push that down, push this in, locks it in place. Sorry, that fitting there, you push that, locks into place, and then you've got your gauge in. So essentially what happens then is, as you crank the engine, this gauge here will start to build some pressure, and you'll know that you're on a compression stroke because it will start getting higher and higher and higher. That way we'll know where we're in the right one. Now you can do the same thing if you do not have this gauge. You can do the same thing by putting your finger in the spark plug hole, turning the engine, and then you'll feel the pressure sort of push your finger out. So don't feel like you have to buy this. This is just for special things, like when we were testing the rings on the MG, just trying to see what the compression actually is. It is useful, but in the case of you trying to find top dead center, this isn't sort of necessary. You can just use your finger to kind of tell when you're on a compression stroke as well. But because I'm one person here, I don't have anyone else on the other side, it is quite hard to reach around and turn it at the same time. So I'm just going to use the gauge so I can see properly and do it. Okay, so we're going to turn this over now. What we're going to look for is pressure building on the gauge here, so the needle should move this way. And then to know if I've done everything right, when the crank is on TDC or near it, this should be facing towards the 1. Now we set this, if you remember in the last episode, to 12 degrees before top dead center, because that's where it sort of is ample for starting the car. Now when we get to about 12, that really should be pointing at 1. If it's pointing this way on the compression stroke, then it's definitely the wrong way around. I need to get it to the right point and put the distributor back in again in the correct position for 12. So let's crank it and see whether I've done something silly or whether I've done it right. So remember here, you're turning it clockwise. Okay, so that's definitely on the exhaust stroke. Okay, we're building pressure now. Okay, so it looks like timing wise everything seems to be okay. So I don't know if you were able to see that on the video, but as you can see there, it's sort of a slight bit of pressure was built up in there as it was turning, and this is the right way, pointing in the right direction. So compared to that, which is now on 12, around about 12 degrees before top dead center. So essentially it looks as though everything is right, in the right way. So timing wise, I think I got it right, which is good news to know that I did it the right way around. So now also what I'm thinking is, when we pulled this off the first time, the rocker covers here, if you noticed in the previous video that we had blue lifters, right? The arms are sort of blue on there. This could indicate that we have roller cams, right? So at some point in its life, this engine has been upgraded to roller cams. What that might mean is if it has a different camshaft or it's been cammed differently, which would sound amazing, but what it also means for us, which is not good, is that these are then all in the wrong place, because the firing order changes when you have the different cams. It'll change the firing order, which means that this might be have the firing order of a, say, 351 as opposed to a 302. Or standard 302 rather. So we're gonna have to have a look at that. So I'm gonna pull them off quickly just to double check that they are rollers, because what it might be is if I change the coil now and the coil doesn't fire properly, then it is a timing order issue, which I will have to have a look at as well. So let me pull one of the rockers off. Let's have a look at that. Let me just double check that I do have rollers, and then we can try the coil, like I said, and then if not, we're gonna have to have a look at the HT leads, because those are in the wrong order. Right, so cam covers off, and as you can see here, if you just have a look at that, so those signify that we've got some rollers. So that's a really good sign. Happy with that. I think they may have put 351 cams in here. So that's a good sign. So it means that most likely my wire's in the wrong order, which is probably why when we turned the key the last time, everything might be okay, including the run. It might be right. I think that the wiring is in the wrong order for the HT leads. So yeah, I mean, not a bad problem to have, but I'm pleased that we've got rollers on there, because I didn't take notice last time. I just thought they were blue, but I didn't inspect them closely. I should have. But yeah, I mean, look, that is a good sign. So I'm going to take the other side off as well, because what we do is when we prime the oil now, what we should see is the oil come up through here and trickle over. So I'm going to do that, so it's a good sign that we've got it to a good point where the oil is circulating properly. And that way I can see it, because obviously I can't be in two places at once, in the car where the gauge is and out here. So this will give me a good sign that actually oil is circulating. and then at least I know that it's making its way to the top of the engine from there. So I'm going to do that quickly. I'm going to take the other side off, get ready to prime the thing. But yeah, really good with that. I'm going to have to do some little bit of homework on the firing order for this, and then we'll tackle that after the oil is primed. So taking this side off, and I've just noticed there's some sort of sponge or something being stuffed down there where the hole should be. Now I don't know whether they did that in storage to try and prevent sort of oil from seeping too much away from the top of here, but I'm gonna take that out. I don't think that's supposed to be in there, but yeah, the Easter eggs I keep finding in this car. Right, so we're ready to give this thing a crack and prime the oil. So this is a tool that you get. So that end goes down into the where the distributor goes, and it mates up to a little sort of hex end. You can see an Allen sort of end you can see there, and you should be able to see it from the top when you push it down in, right? That goes in there, you spin the drill in reverse, and then that should then start priming the oil. So this little cap here will just sit where it goes down. So if I show you, it will sort of drop into place like that, and then it'll spin from there. So I'm just going to try and see if I can give you a better angle of the inside. It is a little bit dark, I don't know, let me just try the flash. But yeah, if you can see in there, so in the center hole just in there, that sort of end on there just goes in, and it'll just bite in there. You probably have to turn it a little bit until it sort of seats in, and then you should be able to spin it from there. So yeah, I'm going to just give it a go, just see if I can find it to thread, and then we will give it a blast. Okay, I'm just going to give it a check. I'm not convinced that that's actually biting anything to spin, because it doesn't feel like there's any sort of resistance. So bear with me, I'm just going to have a look and just see. For those of you who tune in for my supervisor instead of the cars, he's back on duty again, making sure that I'm doing the right thing, and making sure that I'm using the tools correctly. Talking about the tools, so I don't know, it looks like it might be the right size, but I just don't know. Maybe it just needs time. So I'm going to keep going and just see what happens. Perhaps it just needs to run for a little longer. Okay, yep. So it turns out that it's actually it's a quarter inch, not a 5/16. So this one said it was for small blocks and appropriate for the 302 and so on. But I guess not. It was a Ford oil pump primer, but I guess different models, different sizes, maybe a more modern one, to be honest. Perhaps it was for that. But yeah, so looks like I can't get this thing to prime like that. I'm gonna have a look and see. I don't think I have a socket that's long enough to reach that, to be honest. So I think I'm gonna be a little bit stuck at the moment without being able to prime it. So I'm reluctant, but at the same time, there is enough oil there. What I might do is I might just put some oil on the top ends of the engine here while it's open. Just put a little bit of oil on it, and then try and run it, and we'll see if it'll prime itself. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I need to have a think about that one, but it looks like we jammed from the oil priming. But we'll continue. You know, I'm going to have a look and see if I can get the leads the right way around and everything else. But yeah, maybe I'm going to just throw some oil on the top and have a look. But let's get the distributor back in again, get the leads the right way around, and then we'll think about what to do next. Okay, so that's the coils all rewired correctly as per the 302 HO wiring order, and I've put a little bit of oil on top of the rockers and so on in there. So, moment of truth, let's give this guy a quick crank and see what happens. I mean, if it still doesn't work now, then the chances are either the wiring is still wrong, timing is slightly off, or the coil needs to be bypassed. So we'll do that. But let's give it a crank and see, because perhaps the whole time it was just the HT leads being in the wrong order, the wrong firing order. But let's see what happens. Okay, as you can see, something very wrong there. The actual starter didn't disengage, so it just kept going and going and going. I couldn't get it, even turning the key, I couldn't get it to stop firing. So I'm not too sure why that's happening. Something's definitely amiss there. Yeah, not too sure. I'm gonna need to have a look at that one and find out. But I mean, look, it ran for longer, so it means it's close. Something is good is happening. But I think because the starters keeps firing and firing and firing, it just keeps going. So I'm not. Yeah, I honestly don't know. I'm gonna have to have a look at that one and come back to it. All right, everyone. So I've gone away, had a bit of a think about why it's sort of the starter kept engaging and why it's not running properly. So I don't know. I think it's an electrical issue. Now, definitely, there was some puffs of smoke out of the carb there, which is a good sign in a way, because it means that we've got something happening. There's spark going on in there, fuel's igniting, and so on. So I think the wiring now on the HT leads is better because it ran better than it did before. It sounded better. So I think we've nailed that part of the wiring and the HT leads. But I think there's an issue either with the barrel in the car or the starter solenoid, or the exciter wire, essentially, which is this fella here. There's something wrong with this guy into the barrel there, because it shouldn't be getting stuck. So I'm a bit concerned about that, because I don't want the car to fire and then the starter stays engaged and it damages either the flywheel or the starter teeth. I mean, the starter was pretty expensive, so I'd rather it not break, you know, again, a brand new starter motor, right? So yeah, I'm gonna try and have a look at some electrics. I'm gonna, you know, disconnect the wire there, set it to run on the barrel, just see what kind of connections I'm getting. I might even just have a look at the barrel and try and rewire it. To be honest, I don't have much confidence in the way the wiring in the barrel is, because when it moves around and stuff, when you move the barrel, it sort of, things disconnect, lights go off of the dash and things like that. So I don't think it's right. So, you know, rather than trying to hammer this engine and keep trying to start it, I think these things are in a good position. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the timing slightly, because basically it has a mechanical adjustment in it when you move the rotor arm. But I think, doing a little bit more research now, I think that it needs to be dead on the one, rather than it being mechanical advanced then set to where the one marker is. So I'm going to see if I can sort that out first, because it's an easy thing. Just turn the casing back again. It just puts the timing into a better place. So I'm going to try that anyway, and then have a look at the wiring, and let's see. Maybe this thing is going to run in idle. We shall see. The only other thing I will call out is I have done nothing to the carb. I have done nothing in terms of like adjustments to it. I literally bought it and put it in. It was from a running vehicle before. There is a possibility that either it's not baselined correctly for this car, something like that along the lines. But I mean, it's giving us good things are happening, right? It's giving us good signs when there's combustion, the black smoke that's coming out and things like that. So things are happening. I'm less leaning towards it's the car, but obviously at some point we will definitely get that adjusted. But I think between the timing and the electrical issue, there's something squirrely in there. So let's go and take a look. Alright, so I have checked the distributor, I've checked the wiring, the HT leads. This is now all set. I've done a little bit of rewiring here. So what I've done is I was testing out the actual wiring to try and find a 12 volt. It turns out that the ignition end of the starter solenoid was actually stuck on. So I was getting 12 volts no matter what I did, even back, it was sending it back through the ballast resistor and out. Which, yeah, had me really, really confused, to be honest. I was not sure why I was doing that. So yeah, really odd. I had to give it a tap to release it, I think, because when it ran before, it kind of like got stuck on the inside because it generated too much heat. But yeah, so now what I've done is I've wired this end of the ballast resistor straight to the ignition terminal. So it turns out the wire I had originally for the ballast resistor side here, for the constant feeder 12, when the car's running, it was linking up to the headlights for some reason. So I wonder, it was this wire here, which I've snipped off. I wonder if this was just to activate the bulb when the sort of headlights are on, for example, because now basically when I've turned the headlights on, I don't get anything at all through here. yeah, so not sure. I need to figure out how that connects up, to be honest, to give it power to do that. But yeah, essentially we have a direct power now to the barrel when it's on run, basically, which should be right for this. So I'm gonna try it again now. Look, I've done everything I can think of on here. I can try it and crank it one more time and just see if it'll go. And yeah, basically just see what happens, really. It might fail again, it might not start again. Hopefully the solenoid doesn't get stuck again. But look, let's give it a shot and see what happens. I've adjusted the timing now. I've done everything I can think of electrical wise. I've checked the barrel and everything else. I've double checked all the things going to it. So it looks okay. So I just don't know why we wouldn't do it. Obviously I can't test it in run. Because there's only one person, I can't put the run signal on to check it. But obviously in any other position, this wire does not have any power to it. So assuming it's right, it has been working, it is exciting it. Just don't know why it's not going back off again. But I wonder if it's something to do with the ignition here where it just keeps firing. Not too sure, but let's give it a shot and see what happens. Okay, so I've got it on run. Given what happened last time, I'm going to try and jump the starter solenoid from the engine bay, so I'm on this side of the car as opposed to there. So I've got it in run position now. I'm just going to check power to the ballast resistor quickly before we do anything else. Ooh, so we had it running there a little bit, so it was good. So something is good in there. I think it just needs a little bit more fuel. God damn it, needed earmuffs for that, but oh my goodness. I can't tell you how excited I am that this thing is actually finally running. That is absolutely, that was fantastic. We finally have life in this guy. Now I think it needs a little bit of tuning. I'm just so excited. It needs a little bit of tuning, of course. It is running, but it was actually idling under its own settings, to be honest. So that means timing is nearly good. I think it probably needs a little bit of adjustment on timing, and yeah, perhaps the wiring properly sorted out. But now obviously the next stage will getting the cooling in here and the belts back on again, because now we don't have the alternator and so on connected in here. But oh my god, yeah, super excited, guys. Thank you guys for watching and following the journey. Hopefully now the next video that I give to you guys will be smoothly idling.